Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Bean here, and today I am finally doing a wrap-up. You may have noticed I did not do one for the month of February, and that's because between the months of February and March, I read 8 books. I am doing an experiment this semester of being full-time in school and full-time at work, and it's meaning I have very little time for anything else. But I did manage to read 4 books each month, so I'll take that. I also read I listened to a bunch of ebooks, and I read several library books, so I actually only own 2 of the books that I read. But we're gonna go in a general sort of order, and the first book that I read in these 2 months, so back in February this one was Phantom Evil, the first book in the Crew of Hunters series by Heather Graham. This book actually came out in the 2010s, so this isn't a new book. This series is, I want to say, over 30 books long, or at least it's over 20 books long. It's a long series. Heather Graham just pumps out books, and it's pretty amazing. This is a paranormal investigation Paranormal Investigators romance series. I read, like I said, the first one. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It was good. It was intriguing. It was what I expected from a 2010 paranormal investigation and romance story. The characters were fun. They were interesting. This is back a little bit where the unique characters, like where I'm different, that was still kind of a thing that we enjoyed. I am curious to read a bit more of her later stuff. This was an earlier book for what she has written, and I would love to see how her writing has developed because the potential is there and I can see it and it's well done. Unfortunately, I had a lot of things already kind of figured out, but it mostly concentrated and focused on the main 2 between whom there was a romance. No spice in this book, really, barely, there's one scene, that's about it. It was well done, though. I really did enjoy it, and I've heard very good things about her writing, so I'm curious to see. Also, her covers are really pretty, so, this is a very green cover, but as they go on, they get more colorful, they expand a bit, so it's actually really cool. I like seeing her covers at the library. The next book that I read, I actually own. And that is, I read Beyond the Wand, The Magic and Mayhem of Growing Up a Wizard by Tom Felton. I actually ended up half reading this and half listening to the audiobook, which he narrates, which I highly recommend. If you haven't listened to that, you should. Most definitely. It was really well done. It was very interesting. I don't give ratings much to memoirs because I'm not going to judge someone's life for what they did. But obviously this gets a 5 out of 5. This is very interesting. He talks about his life, a little bit of his life before Harry Potter, because he was in movies before that. He was in The Borrowers, is the most well-known one. And then he did, obviously, Harry Potter, and then a little bit afterwards. And he talks about his life post-Harry Potter and how growing up on a film set really affected his life and how it changed a lot, especially since it was different for the main 3 people, and then for everybody else in the cast, it just hit a little bit differently. So I think this was very interesting, very well done, and really brought out, you kind of got to know him a little bit. I'm very intrigued. I thought it was very interesting, and I do recommend it, especially if you're a Potterhead still. The next book I read is actually another one that I own, and it was actually an ARC that I got. Look guys, I read an ARC! Look at me go! I read The Mimicking of Known Successes. This is the first book in the Mosa and Pleiti series. Those are the names of our 2 main characters. I feel so bad. I know I said her name wrong. Pleiti. I'm so sorry. But this is a sci-fi novella that is a murder mystery with a tiny little sprinkle of romance in there because this is a female-female romance. Basically, they dated at one point and then they stopped dating and now they're kind of back together a little bit, but not before this book starts. They're just meeting each other again as this book is starting. Because of this case that Mosa finds, she ends up enlisting Pleiti to help her. And it's so good. It's very intriguing. It was a very good book. I will say, I don't know if it's because it's a novella, but it felt very dense to me. And for that reason, it was hard for me to focus on it at times because it just delved into a lot of how the world worked in a very, it had to be very condensed. So it was a very condensed version of how the world worked, and it felt very dense to me. So I'm curious if that's going to change as the stories keep going, but I really enjoyed this book, and I do plan on continuing once this series continues, because I didn't realize that it was going to be more than one book. In fact, I don't think it was originally, but this came out in March, so I did manage to read it in February, so that's exciting. I did give it a 3.5 out of 5. The next book that I read a manga. I read A Man and His Cat, Volume 3 by Umi Sakurai. I am really enjoying this manga series. I don't think I'm going to end up buying it, because once I've read it, I'm good. But it's really cute to watch this man and his cat just kind of bond, and in order for him to kind of heal of what has happened to him in the past, and for the cat to also kind of heal, and how he interacts with the people around him and all of that. And it's honestly so much fun. It's so sweet. And if you want an introduction to, I don't want to call it slice of life, but it kind of is a slice of life manga, I would highly recommend this one. So I do plan to continue it, no doubt there. The next book that I read, I went on a search for found footage books, so books kind of like Illuminae, where it's made up of stories, it's made up of journal entries, it's made up of like footage and that kind of stuff, because I'm attempting to write a book in that kind of style, and I want more examples of how people have done it in the past. And honestly, I'm having a tough time finding them, but I did find this book, and it's called Episode 13 by Craig DeLuey. This was a very interesting story about a paranormal investigation team, so I read Paranormal Investigators, I guess. And it basically followed them, each of the different characters who have very distinct personalities, very distinct motivations for this TV series that they're doing about being paranormal investigators, and how this one area that is incredibly haunted, how it affects each person individually. It is so interesting. It was so well done. And if you do end up reading this, I highly recommend the audiobook, because it's a cast audiobook, and that's so much better for these kinds of things. Highly recommend. I was in it for the story until like the last quarter of the book. Once the intense haunting started, I loved it. I was so into it. And then something happened, I won't say right here, right now, because spoilers, and they lost me. I just went, okay, I'm kind of out. I don't really like it. There can be an argument that I could definitely see. The one non-white character they have left where they were, didn't complete the adventure. It was kind of weird how he wrote it, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe it could be seen as she had more common sense than the rest of them, which is possible. Very possible. But I don't know, the way that he kind of depicted it, it was just a bunch of characters that you don't really fully like. And as much as I love the unlikable main characters, usually there's some sort of redeeming factor, and for me, two characters had redeeming factors, maybe three characters had redeeming factors of the main 5, and that's it. Like, I hated the other, I really did not like the other two, and it wasn't just because I didn't understand their way of thinking, I just didn't like them as people. I don't know. It was very well done as far as the found footage aspect. I absolutely loved how he did that. I loved every aspect of that. That was so much fun, so interesting, and I definitely took a lot away from it as far as for my own writing. With the story itself, I just had troubles with, especially near the end. And that ending for me was a cop-out. I disliked that ending intensely. So I did end up giving it a 3.5 out of 5. I gave a lot of things 3.5 out of 5 this month, just as a warning for you guys. It wasn't bad. The entire book, like the majority of the book, was good. The ending made me upset. Like, actually upset. So, unfortunately, that's where I lie with that one. The next book that I read, I picked up a quick graphic novel that we had just got in. It was new release, and that is Robin by Cami Garcia and Gabriel Piccolo. This is part of the Raven and Beast Boys series that has been coming out over the past couple years. This is a very fun series. It is not canon in any way, shape, or form to the DC universe. Because in this, there's only 2 Robins, and there are like 8 Robins, actually, in Batman-verse. But I digress. This was very interesting. They ended up using just Dick and Damian, and it was well done. They're not my favorite Robins, so that kind of played into part, but I like how they did Damian in this one. He is much more of an identifiable character that people can actually sympathize with, that teenagers can understand. He doesn't like that his big brother jumps into things. So I definitely really did like how they depicted them. It's not canon, like I've said, but it was fun. It was enjoyable, and I really do like the art style of this. I think there's going to be one more, and I think it's Starfire is the next one, but I don't remember, honestly. So that was that one. Enjoyed. I gave that one, again, no, I gave that one a 4 out of 5, because really the only downside to that story was the fact that they didn't include the other Robins. Because Jason and Tim are my favorite Robins. Yeah, I'm weird. Don't come for me. So I completely forgot that I have this book. I read another novella. I read Heatwave by Victor Justin. This is a translated book. I believe it's translated from French. This was an interesting book. This takes place over the course of, I think, 3 days. This follows a 17-year-old boy on a beach vacation with his family, which I guess is a thing in Europe. I live in America. I actually don't recognize this type of vacation. This isn't something I've ever been on, but from what I understand, this is very common in Europe, especially in France, which is awesome. I wish we did vacations more like this, but it's basically everyone goes camping, and then like the teenagers have their area where they can all hang out and like have parties and do stuff, and they drink and they go have fun on the beach. And this story follows Leonard, who goes for a walk one night right near the end of the trip, and he comes across one of the other teenagers in the process of hanging himself while he's drunk. And Leonard then just proceeds to watch. He doesn't stop him, he doesn't do anything, he just watches. And it's following him because afterward, and I'm trying not to do spoilers here, but he takes the kid's body and he buries it in the sand. And the story is then him the next like day or two like trying to mentally get through this and to also be like, I killed him because I didn't do anything. And it was very, very interesting, but it also was a little forgettable at times too, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But I had a tough time with this book, partially because this is trigger warning, obviously, suicide, death, alcohol, yes, lots of triggers for this one. It is a very short book. It's 104 pages. It took me like 2 hours, honestly, to read because it was difficult at times. But I'm not sure what it was about this. I wanted it to be more overwhelming than it was. It felt underwhelming for the subject matter, but I really appreciated just how in-depth the emotional state of Leonard gets and all of the people surrounding him. And there's a reason he let this kid die, and it gets very gritty for a novella about a vacation. So I do recommend, be careful of the trigger warnings. It's interesting. I did give it a 3.5 because I didn't enjoy it, but I didn't not enjoy it, if that makes any sense. So I thought about the rating for this one for a long time and finally settled on 3.5 because I couldn't come up with anything else. That's the only place it could sit for me. I don't know if it's good or bad interesting is the problem. The next book that I read was an audiobook, an audio arc audiobook. Ugh. For Of Manners and Murder, which is the first book in the Dear Miss Hermione series by Anastasia Hastings. This was good. This was an enjoyable read. We follow 2 sisters, and I don't remember their names because I'm trash. And one of them is all very practical. Our main characters, everything is very practical, very much like, I don't need a man, and Unfortunately, that trope's kind of getting a little old with that. And the other sister is boy crazy, which honestly was so much more amusing. I found her obnoxious, but you're supposed to. And it was the perfect amount of obnoxiousness that I still found her endearing at times. They live with their aunt, and their aunt runs this Dear Hermione newspaper column. So it's basically women write in. This is Victorian times too. I'm sorry, I did not say that. This is a Victorian era novel. It is a murder mystery. Basically, in these columns, women write in with problems they're having at home or questions they have for Miss Hermione, who is obviously a pen name. They're just like the Dear Whoever columns that you see in newspapers every once in a while. I know we have them here in America. I assume other countries do too. I don't know, honestly. But so the older sister takes over this column while her aunt's on vacation, and she's so practical, and she's trying to solve these very Victorian issues by women being like, oh, I don't know that I'm the perfect wife, and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, just get over it. Just do your thing. Like, you're fine. And it's very amusing at first. It's a little strange. Parts of it are a little weird. You do have to accept this is Victorian era. Women are not seen as equals in this time. That is how it is. But she gets a letter from a young woman who's married, and she says she has marital problems, only to learn later on that this young woman is dead. And our main character's like, there's no way that she just died, and she ends up going on this whole mystery to try and figure out what happened. While on the other hand, the younger sister she has a secret suitor who sends her romantic gestures in flowers, and it's kind of fun. I like the flower add in there. That one's kind of fun. It was good. It was a good story. I figured out the mystery, and I figured out how it all interconnected halfway through the book. But I enjoyed the banter. It was fun. It was, I won't say unique. I'm sorry, it wasn't unique. I might continue, I might not. I'm not terribly intrigued, but I do enjoy the characters, and I enjoy how it ended too. That was kind of fun. But again, I am still a little underwhelmed by it, so yes. I ended up giving that a 3.5 out of 5. Go figure. The last book that I read in the month of March, actually, I ended up picking up A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. Now, this is the third T. Kingfisher book that I have read. This is also the lowest rating I have given one, I believe. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5. I couldn't give it anything higher, unfortunately. It wasn't working for me. This book is a Southern Gothic horror novel that takes place in a very, very small town. Basically, our main character's name is Sam, and she is heading down to visit her mother, who has inherited her grandmother's house and has fixed it up all like she likes it, but her brother calls and says, Mom's acting weird. And she goes, okay. She is I don't remember the term, what is she studies insects. And I don't remember the title for that. I don't remember the job title, I'm sorry, but she studies insects. She's very into bugs. Cool, whatever. And so she goes down to visit her mom, to stay with her mom for a little while, because she's actually an archaeologist. She studies fossilized insects. Yeah. And the dig they were on got shut down temporarily, so she, has nowhere to go, so she goes down to her mom's. And while down there, she realizes that her mom is, in fact, acting strange and acting as though her grandmother is still alive, which is impossible because her grandmother is dead. But some weird things start happening at the house, and without getting into too many spoilers, I was very underwhelmed by this book. It wasn't all that interesting to me. Whenever I read a T. Kingfisher novel, my whole goal is to have something at the end that scares me for the next few weeks. Like, something that I do not want to touch that. I read The Hollow Places, and Willow trees freaked me out for a while. So did otters. It just was weird for a bit. Even when I read What Moves the Dead, like for a while, rabbits were a little creepy. And any like white hairs, nope. No. I had nothing at the end of this book. There was nothing that creeped me out. Vultures, no, they weren't creepy. Ladybugs don't creep me out. And unfortunately, the only other scary thing that we had, it's a little bit of a spoiler, so when I put my hand down, you can keep watching because I'm going to say spoilers until my hand's down, is we had a person who's made of plants. I grew up with poison ivy. Like, that's not scary to me. I'm sorry, it's just not. So unfortunately, I was just kind of underwhelmed by this book. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 because I enjoyed the banter. I enjoyed the characters. Our main character, Sam, she is depicted, as she even says it herself, she is fat. So, and that's a thing. I don't know, it's, a lot of the things they put in there felt very random, almost unnecessary. I don't know, this book just didn't quite sit well with me. It didn't tick the boxes that I wanted it to do as a horror novel, so I'm a little disappointed, which is unfortunate. But yeah, that's what I got for you guys today. So I talked really long time about 8 books, so there you go. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please comment down below if you have any thoughts on these books as well. I would love to have a discussion. I really do. I like talking about these books. I miss talking about books rather than about management strategies that we talk about at school. You'd think in library school we'd talk more about books, but we honestly hardly talk about books at all. Anyways, I'm getting off topic here. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time when we post videos on Wednesdays and Fridays and occasional Sundays when we get distracted during the week. Alright, until next time guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep reading. Bye!